I continue, don't I?
I don't know.
Un momento, por favor.
I thought I went into...
Yes.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, oh, no, I'm not. I'm
Oh,
not next. Okay, well, I think I'm next.
Yes.
There we go, it's me. Okay, so I'm all set to click? All right. That's not, okay, well.
Press it once more.
No, that's, okay. I guess, is this my first slide? I'm sorry, Chris,
You're looking for the video?
no, I'm looking for my slides.
This is your puzzle.
There, that's my slide.
There was 4 extras. I put them at the front.
You didn't tell me. It's okay. By the way, I want a hand for Chris. He has done so much. Thank you, Chris. So, okay, now I can talk. I recognize the slides. My puzzle is called Butterflies in Spring. I have a misleading title. First of all, I called it Butterflies in Spring because to me that sounded more Asian and exotic than if I just said an American spring butterflies. It's made of 3 different Japanese Chayagami papers. They have intense color. They're made with pure inks, unlike a lot of the printed stuff, so they stand out and they really, they pop out at me. I love them. But they're thick. So any cutter who knows about it knows you don't cut puzzles with thick paper. I wanted to do it anyway because I really loved the artwork. In touching the pieces, you have to be careful how you handle them. If you handle them too much, the edges will fray. So I just want to give you a warning on that. That is a problem with the puzzle, but I think it's worth it. It's a 3-layer puzzle. The butterflies in the top layer, it has trees and ground, and that's connected by a trunk. There were problems I came up with using the paper. First of all, was just matching the colors. It's pure ink, so that pink didn't go with that blue, or this yellow in this paper didn't match that green. Even though I loved it and had lots of samples, I really couldn't make the puzzle. So I ordered some online. I signed up for the exchange, and I told Janell and Deb, hey, if I get these papers online and they don't work, I'm going to drop out. Well, they did work. That was great. In the meantime, I did a prototype, and as the last step, I scanned it in, stuck it in, and lo and behold, my mind had made patterns smaller than what it was. So if I really was going to go with that prototype, the puzzle would have been twice as big, and well, anyway, I couldn't do that. So I had to redo the design. How does this work? The first problem was mounting the image, and I had to align the top and the bottom correctly. They're connected by a trunk, so they have to be spaced properly in order for me to go in, cut the truck figural, and I end up with the top and the bottom, or I end up with the trees and the flowers, the bottom layer. The other 2 layers just had to have a number of, a lot of wood around them so that I could stack cut. This is an assembly of the stack cut. You'll notice I had to go in, I have to figure out where the top goes in relation to the bottom. This may look to you like I've just cut out pieces of the pattern. I haven't. There's actually an outline that I went by, so they had to line up, and this is the way I did it. I want to give a tip on stack cutting. You can do it with nails or screws. I find that it can be slightly off, so you're better off using a drill press and dowels. That's what I used. You can use hot melt glue or even another glue, but you have to be careful. You're putting it on the outside, and you have to be careful that the layers still remain parallel. If you have a lot of stack cutting, you can make a jig. I did that on a previous exchange puzzle, and if anybody's interested, I'll go into how to do that. And if you have a small strip cut, maybe you're doing something like maybe 2 inches, you can wrap it in drafting tape and cut it, and that will work. I wanted the butterflies to be only subtly different than the rest of the layers, so I mounted them on 1/8" plywood, and then I just used drafting tape to affix it to whatever section it was going in. In stack cutting, for the bottom one, it was very easy. Okay, high tech here. I just cut a little knob into this butterfly, cut out the butterfly, and then I cut along the edge. You can see where I have my guideline. And this is the final product here. I could have done the same with the top, but I didn't really want all of that extra double cutting. So instead, I used a drill. You have to get, usually a cheap drill. The good ones won't let you go down this small. But, and I'm not sure where you will get these bits. Ben hasn't been in business for a long time. But that drill bit is small enough that you can feed your blade through it. You just have to pick a portion of, like in the butterfly where there's either a crease or something like that, so it isn't noticeable. You now have everything cut. You've got to glue these together, and you have to make sure that all of these layers are lined up. So that's why I haven't cut any of the other pieces in this. I've simply clamped everything together and made sure I could do this with it to make sure that, you know, when the puzzle was finished, anybody could just plunk in the butterfly. Finally, I get to cut the rest of the outline and the pieces. Most of it was just cut, but I did throw in a few deceptive double cuts. I found out I'd miscalculated on the square inches. I usually cut between 2.2 and 2.3. This was bigger, so it took a lot longer to cut. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not 130, it's 120. Then I sanded and finished the back. The puzzles you're going to get are either cherry or mahogany. And I hand finished them with tung oil and shellac. The tung oil brings out all the beauty of the wood. The shellac gives it a lovely feel. Another tip, try to put as many little things as you can think of into your puzzles so that as a person is doing it, they discover a little bit more and more the second, third, or fourth time they do it. For this puzzle, because it's really for puzzle exchange, I put in one more little puzzle for all of the cutters. Well, actually, the laser people can use it too. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to play with the puzzle and maybe figure it out. I will say, if you can't figure it out, I will tell you at the end of the parley. It's one of these things, it's an idea that you can keep in your back pocket. I'm sure other people have thought of it, but I thought of it when I first cut this. And you can use it to make a really nasty trick puzzle. Thank you.
Who's next?
Me.
Look at the screen.
Me. That was awesome, by the way.
Thanks, Melinda.
All right, so it seems that puzzles tend to be, at least the puzzle makers, tend to be heavily inspired by Eastern art. So now we've got my version of a bonsai. I don't have a way to make it forward. You make it go forward.
You have the remote right there. Did Melinda take it?
Oh,
You make it go forward then.
Yeah, keep that at the podium.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
This light plans of Mike's and then often go astray.
So, the way I start my puzzles is I use the free vector design program called Inkscape. So, if you're looking to get into laser cutting, start there. And I will, actually, that's a lie. I start on my tablet because I am sick of being stuck on my computer all the time. So I got a tablet and I start drawing on there. And I will draw out my design. And often I will start the puzzling process where, much like the cutting workshop earlier today, which I was bad at, I will make the lines that I make, the interlocking knobs and whatnot, all on my tablet, and I draw it with a pen, so it makes it really easy for me. And then I will take it to my desktop computer, where I use Inkscape and take the million tiny little dots that are connected, and it literally draws tiny dot line, dot line, dot line, dot line. And there's like literally a million dots. And I smooth out the whole thing and tweak it until I get something that is what I actually want it to do. It won't take forever to laser cut it. So this is kind of a short GIF of my thought process, like how I'm going through it. That is like the difference with wood cutting with a scroll saw versus wood cutting with a laser is that I went through at least 7 named versions, version 7, and then I stopped naming them because I was like, nobody needs to know. And I masked both sides of my laser when I put masking tape when I cut it so it doesn't leave smoke residue, and I do it on both sides. And then I use this Gorilla Tape, which is super duper sticky, to tear off all of the masking at one time. Otherwise, I would literally have no fingernails left. Because, you know, tiny little stickers, trying to get all the little pieces. This turns a hour-long job per puzzle into 5 minutes. Here are some of my versions. There's only about 4 versions on the table, but I'm testing out how I paint it, testing out how it fits together, because sometimes it'll be all floppy and I need, dang it, this thing is slick. So here is me splattering paint, and it's watercolor. So I use watercolor on primed wood, or in this case I also just use watercolor straight on the wood, and then I give it a coat of triple thick clear glaze, and so it gives it a really nice texture. And that's about like 400 puzzle pieces, and I put them all together in a full sheet and painted it all at the same time, and then I flipped it over and did the same thing and sealed both sides, and then split it up in between each of the 11. So it's a totally different way to make puzzles than, one at a time. So you can flip the sets of leaves. You have pink and white, and green and over there. Nope.
Right click.
It's the right click. It's not going anywhere. Thank you. Me painting.
Did you accidentally turn, is it
I
on and off
probably
switch?
did. It is off. Fantastic.
Turn it on.
Me putting the clear coat on in the middle of the most humid, hottest time in Georgia. And it's hard to do humid and like spray paint, right? Right, Thom? Right, Chris? Like, man. And there's a really fine detail. You can see the dirt has little microbes in it, and they have glittery watercolor, so you can kind of a little bit see them. And then you put the second layer on, which is the pot. And the thing with this is the entire puzzle is absolutely flip it over reversible, so the pot itself comes off and flips over and fits on the back. And then there's like kind of a fuller version, so you've got the white, pink, that you could combine if you wanted to. They're the same shape, and then the puzzle piece literally flips over into green, orange, and it's a tessellation. So you literally can build the canopy of the tree any way you want, and there are 5 holes and 5 pegs for each color, which means you can create a second layer of canopy. And there's a full set of seasons. And that's it. So, Our next cutter is brand new to Parley. I mean, there are a lot of us that are brand new here, right? But Chaz, where is Chaz? There you are. Don't get the cables on the way up. Here is the slick controller.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Just click right.
Yes. This,
Okay, thank you. Well, I am amazed by the two previous cutters. Mine is a much simpler puzzle. It's called the Woodworm, and I was fortunate to be gifted an amazing amount of wood veneer by a retiring woodworker who had been gifted this same pile of wood veneer from another retiring woodworker years before. And I wanted to avoid doing that to my son-in-law. So I just decided to use this stuff up any way I could. And I came up with a way of making patterns in the veneer and gluing them to 1/4 inch MDF and then cutting that into a puzzle. And I glue the veneer to both sides of the MDF. And so you can't tell one side from the other. So that gives me the opportunity to stand this up and make a vertical puzzle. And there are just a lot of different possibilities for vertical puzzles, and this is one of the first ones I came up with. It starts as a 7 1/4 inch square, and I cut it into 3 panels. One panel kind of tapers off, and that becomes the tail, which also makes a rise in the other panel, so that becomes the head. And then the center panel is the lower one.
You can use the left button to go back.
So yeah, I'll do that. So that's what the puzzle looks like when it's completed. And because it's got these kinks in it, that makes it stable. And it's a happy little worm. So one of the problems I had was how to cut these miter joints. I cut the miter joint with a miter saw. That's easy enough, glue those together. But then I want to be able to cut those the puzzle pieces in the miter joint. And I came up with this little jig, which holds the 2 sides of the miter steady while I cut. Where's the pointer? The pointer's the middle?
The very middle.
So this is the glue joint here. And now I can cut in and around like that and come out over there. And then I'll cut in like that. But if you rock that miter piece at all, you'll end up not being able to get the piece out or in the other way. So it's very important to have parallel cuts the whole way. So when I cut the puzzle, I will start at one point like here, and I just cut around until I come out over here. I cut the whole puzzle. So I'm cutting this each panel by itself. So I've separated that into 2 pieces, and now I'm going to cut it into individual pieces. But it's really critical to compare where this half of the puzzle is interacting with this other half. And so I've gone through and marked with these little pieces of purple tape where I'm going to cut it into individual pieces. And I usually end up moving those pieces of tape around quite a bit. So then I would totally separate it and whack it all up into little pieces. And it's amazing to me when I get done that I come up anywhere near the 85 pieces I predicted, because I have no idea how many pieces it's going to be until I get done. The technique of sawing the whole thing into 2 pieces, that takes a little practice. It's real easy to get yourself into a blind corner where you can't get out. You have enough to suck away. Before I started cutting it into the panels, I put a coat of clear acrylic on it and sand that pretty well so it's got a really good base coat of sealer. And then after I've got the whole thing cut into little pieces, I'll sand both sides with 220 and just give a spray coat of lacquer on it all. That brings the shine right back. Anyway, I've really enjoyed it. I've got a few more vertical ideas popping up in my head. Usually I cut one puzzle and I've got another puzzle creeping into the back of my mind. So that was quite a strain to cut multiple puzzles in the same. So I've got a whole backlog of stuff in my mind that I'm trying to try it. Okay, so that's all.
And this is Shay.
Okay. So this is my 3rd Puzzle Parley. I did one in 2016, I did the 2021, and now I'm here for the 2022. Unfortunately, I missed the 2018, I was moving. But I was thinking about my puzzles and the fact that pieces go missing. Usually it's the last piece that goes missing. So where do those pieces go? And that's what I put together in my head for my story for this year's puzzle. And I like to put stories together in my head because it keeps me much more entertained as I'm cutting multiple puzzles, because normally I don't cut the same puzzle over and over and over. So having a story really does help me along. So when I dump my puzzle out of its box, this is what it looks like. And you might notice there's no back. I ended up doing a double-sided puzzle, which I've never done before. So that was a new challenge for me and a lot of fun. And I was thinking, what happens to those puzzle pieces? They get swirled away. Something comes along and takes them. And we are searching for that puzzle piece under the table for hours. We're looking all around the house. And there's probably a squirrel sitting outside watching us as we are searching. Well, the puzzle piece got swirled away, clearly. So to create this puzzle and the story, I also like to do my own artwork. So what I did, I have an iPad and I use Procreate. And I use Procreate a lot for the whimsies that I do, for any of the puzzles that I make. I like to draw them out. Procreate lets me put a grid up so I know 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. So it really helps me to plan out a puzzle before I sit down and waste a lot of wood or paper and time. So with the Procreate puzzle, or the Procreate program, I was able to draw and paint and create my own little squirrel pictures and such. And like I said, I kind of needed 2 pieces to the story though, because there's the looking piece and the confusion piece, and there's the swirled away piece. So really that's why I decided a 2-sided puzzle to pull the whole thing together. You have to look at both sides. Part of the challenge for me was I wanted to do color line cutting around the swirl on both parts of this puzzle. And I'm pretty close here. One of the biggest challenges was actually getting this image lined up on both sides of the wood. I didn't really think about how will I do that. I thought I'll mount it on one side, flip it over, put the other one on. That doesn't work too well. So I ended up taking a straight edge. I'd mount one on, put a straight edge across it, and do all 4 corners that way. Then I'd draw a little line down the end of my wood, flip it over, put the other piece of, the other image on it, draw straight lines and try to get it lined up just right before adhering it. And then I'd go ahead, I use a dry press, so then I dry press it with that. And I use painter's tape to hold the image where I want it when I get it right where I want it to be. I put some painter's tape because that's not really affected by the dry pressing process. So that's how I got them lined up. Then I had another challenge though, because, well, you're not gonna see it here because I solved the challenge somewhat. But as you cut the puzzle, especially those of you who were in the workshops today, you know that when the blade goes down, you get little, I call them whiskers, you get whiskers on the backside. And that would be a real giveaway to somebody who's putting together a double-sided puzzle that, oh, these are all this side because they've got all these little whiskers. So what I did there is I took some transfer paper, which is used in signage, and the transfer paper doesn't really stick to the top of the image. So I put transfer paper on both sides of the puzzle, and as I cut, I'd flip back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So even if I did have a little whiskering, you wouldn't know because I'm flipping it back and forth, it wasn't all on one side of it. And then when I'm done with all of that, I have all the little pieces of that transfer paper to pull off, and I think Janelle, thank you, I'm gonna get Gorilla Tape. Because that looks like that's the solution. When you said that, I was like, I should have called you a few months ago. So I peeled all of that transfer paper off, and I still have a little bit of whiskering in areas, so I have a 2500 grit polishing paper. It's like a sandpaper, but it's a polishing paper. And I just go over the top with that, and it seems to take care of the rest of the little bit of whiskering that goes on. So that's the story, and I did not have a signature piece. A lot of cutters have a signature piece. Because I drew it, I just have my signature in the piece on both sides. So that's it. We have Lisa. I'm not sure how we're doing Lisa.
She cut puzzles?
I'll run the,
You'll run
just
Lisa's?
introduce her.
So Lisa Lee was not able to make it, but she has participated before, and she made this amazing dragon puzzle, and I'm gonna let Lisa tell you all about it.
Hello everyone. Here's my short video about my little puzzle. It's not anything special, but here it is. My little dragon. I wanted to do something a little bit different with no ends, no borders. And the whole point was to make a puzzle with the same type of pieces over and over again to make it a little bit more difficult to put together. But I don't think it's that hard to put together. I asked permission to use the little dragon piece from Power Puzzles, and he graciously said yes. And I redesigned them just a little bit. I think it works pretty well. The artwork is just something I've had in my artwork library for 10, 15 years or so. Like I said, it's not hard. I just was trying to make something fun and a little bit different than I usually do. Here's my box. Well, the inside of the box anyway, with the little label. Label's on the back. There's my label. I hope everyone enjoys the puzzle. I had fun designing it, and I hope to see everybody at the next Parley in person.
Once we put this on YouTube, we'll have the corrected audio for you. That's the front of the puzzle. The cutting is truly intricate, looking at this up close. And from the back, you can see a little bit more of the shape she's cutting here. So this is not amateur hour. That's a close-up of her work. So yeah, yeah. we miss having Lisa here, but she was unable to come, but she contributed to our exchange. So let's give her a round of applause.
And our next contestant is Terra, who everybody on Facebook loves Terra's puzzles. She cuts under chestnut and hemlock, and I'll let her tell you about her puzzles.
Don't touch this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So Janelle suggested that we try to push ourselves with our puzzle submission for the exchange. And I had been working with dropouts and really thin sections. I wanted to continue to do that. But I had never done a puzzle with layers. And I wanted to try that. So I decided, why not bite off more than I can chew when I have to do 11? Seemed wise to me. So I like flowers, I like nature, and the flowers really give you the opportunity to do little thin sections and lots of dropouts. And this is a Dutch flower painting. It's from the, I know I'm going to pronounce it wrong, the Rijksmuseum in the Netherlands. The artist in Dutch flower painting, Spain, I can't pronounce the name. But anyway, so this is the original from the Rijksmuseum, and they have a great download, nice, perfect, easy. If you want images, copyright free, you're good to go there. But I had to simplify it, because I had to get it down to 7 inches, and not many pieces. So you can see I cut away a lot. There's a few sections. Is that the laser? So it's hard probably to see, but this little line, this little flower goes up to here. Well, I could do it and let it go across here, but I didn't want to keep it going there because that would have been way too thin and way too fragile. So I cut it off here, but I had to do some Photoshop where it went in front of that leaf. And then so I cut one, and I had way too many little tiny dropouts up here. I could have drilled them and cut the little holes, but I prefer to cut where you cut into the hole and the pieces all around it, you know, hold hands around it. So I had to go back and fill in with Photoshop some of where those dropouts would have been, because it was too many too close together. So this is how I managed the layers. I did 3 parts, exact same image, same scale, printed, basically cut 3 puzzles. I did not stack cut, maybe next time I will. It was very hard to get like this section and this section to be the same when I'm not stack cutting, but that's what I did. And then, so this is the back. I like little pieces. If you've ever worked one of my puzzles, you know the smaller the better. So that's what I've done, really small pieces. They go from about, I think, 203 to 240 pieces in the 11 that I cut. This shows you how I like to, you know, I cut here, it comes in, I cut that hole, you know, finish cutting the pieces. Every hole has got a connection. This area was one of the hardest. I finally, about, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through, figured out that I figured it out how to cut it. And so then for all of the others, I just flipped the puzzle over and looked at the pieces I'd already cut and cut them similar to the ones before. Finally, I figured out how to do those. This is how I made layers. I took basically 2 pieces, super glued them together to anchor it. So that's all you have to connect the layers. Except I think in one of the puzzles, there's 4 anchors, but I decided that fewer anchors was better. That shows the height difference. So it's all 1/4 inch finished birch. And originally I was going to put the largest, the third layer on the end, but we decided that made it look too tall from that direction. So I put the third layer in the middle. And the thing I liked about it is that you have basically that white flower, you have 3 of them. You don't know where it goes. So it just makes it a little harder. And my husband would say it's because I'm purely evil, but he doesn't quite get it. So that's the final one, that's the final puzzle. So, and I did some other Photoshop to like brighten this area up a little bit because it was very, very dark. Still rather dark, but yeah.
And every layer is completely pictured. Every layer has an entire picture on it, right?
So,
you don't have a layer above, there's an empty picture below it in the next one.
so that is all of, when you get the box, it's got that in it, except this was before I glued like,
The anchor pieces.
the anchor piece right there is glued to the anchor piece right there. So that makes one double thickness piece. But other than that, that's what's in your box. Make sense?
Great.
Okay.
Come on down. This is Jessie, part of nervous system. You guys are all familiar with them. They've been participating for several years. Yep.
Thank you. All right, well, apparently I got the memo that double-sided puzzles was like a theme this year, so we also made a double-sided puzzle. But it's kind of a single-sided puzzle because pieces from one side flip and then connect to the other side, so the image is actually continuous from the top to the bottom. You can only ever see half of it basically at a time. And every time you assemble it, you can sort of see different parts of the image.
Can you put all the ones of the Parley together in one giant puzzle?
You could, they do tie. So yeah, if you want to see the whole image at once, you get 2 together. So the artwork we made in collaboration with another artist named Amanda, I never know how to pronounce her last name, Jigsaw. And she's also an artist that works with software, so all of our puzzles are made by software that we create. And she's also an artist that works with software, and she created a simulation of paper marbling. And we used that to create a paper marbling digital image that also has this tiling. Yeah, then our puzzles are laser cut, if that was not clear, and then these puzzles are UV printed, so they're printed on a flatbed printer with no paper. It uses a UV sensitive ink that goes directly on the wood, and that also helps with the sort of double-sided aspect, like previous person was talking about. But we've created double-sided puzzles like this in the past where you have to register the front and the back. And previously we've done that with sort of like jig pin systems. And the nice thing about the flatbed printing is that we can cut the puzzle, we print after we cut, and because it's digitally printed directly on the wood, the alignment sort of comes for free. It's just, you shove it into the corner of the printer, and the corner of the printer is in the same place every single time. So this is showing sort of 2 sides. We threw in a sort of signature-esque whimsy. So we don't have a specific signature whimsy, but it's a brain. And it's called the this marbling puzzle because it's sort of based on this topology that's similar to a Mobius strip, as you might be familiar with. It's a sort of strip that only has one side. So as you go around, you only... I can't explain this right now. It's late.
It's a 3D
I have a
version of a
1-year-old.
Mobius strip.
So the way the puzzle works is the same sort of topology that you see in this mathematical object called a Clyde bottle, which has no inside or outside. Just like the puzzle really doesn't have a top or a bottom, it's all one continuous surface. And then this is what the image looks like when it's not cut up into a puzzle. And oh yeah, I didn't actually state this even though it was on the slide, but the original image is a Georgia O'Keeffe painting, which then goes through this marbling simulation. So we totally stole the colors from a much better artist. Talked about... Thanks.
Isabelle is another one of our brand new puzzle cutters, but has not been new to cutting puzzles, right? This isn't your first year, right? Come on up here. Here's your controller. Here's the off switch. This is ridiculous.
Hello. So, yeah, like Janell says, I'm a baby cutter. I'm cutting since a year and a half. So my puzzle is quite simple to what we saw before, but I wanted to, first, the art is by myself. I'm sometimes painting, and I'm not good at painting, so most of the time I'm just putting colors together. So the art I did is from 4 different paintings that I made. And the one was the sunset, and one was a sea design, and the other one was like green and yellow paint. And I decided to, so I printed those paintings on a 13 by 19, and I cut it pieces of them, and I created the hummingbird because the hummingbird is also my signature piece. What do you? Where is
The right button.
No, the
Laser
light.
is in the middle.
Okay, this one. Oh!
No. Don't press that button.
Sorry.
The circular button between the
this
two
one.
arrows, yes.
Okay, so here is my hummingbird piece in the middle. And so yeah, so that was my design. And I also like to cut using different technique when I'm cutting. So I like to do like line cutting. So it's a puzzle within a puzzle. I like to do different edges, turns, and I also like to use different kind of cuts, like more classic, or like in the waves, I cut like waves pieces. And I also did few different shapes pieces that I draw by hand, so they are not perfect. Here, one here, and this one I follow the little art. And so my original art is 13 by 19 collage. And so here you can see the much better my pieces. And what else? I like to cut semi-interlocking. Here you can see more of the waves. So yeah, the challenge was to cut 11 puzzles. And that's why I decided to go with one of my own art, because I didn't want to be bored about cutting the same puzzle all over and over. And actually, total, I cut it 20 because people order some, and I had to cut 20 of them.
Did you say you cut your figure pieces freehand? Or
yeah.
You had a pattern to look at, but you didn't put the pattern on?
This one was when I did my original collage, I did the shape of the art, and so when I cut it, I decided to follow the art too. But this one here was like, yeah, it's freehand. I drew on a paper and I drew it on it.
Drew on what? A piece of paper separate from the puzzle?
Yes.
And then sort of looked at it?
Yeah.
Cut it that way?
Yeah, yeah. But I realized, I think it's the first 5 puzzles, the pieces are a little bit bigger, and after that I was like, okay, I should make them a little smaller. So I changed all over the number of puzzles I made. Another close. And I forgot to take a picture of only the hummingbird. So I'm using mahogany as a wood. And this is the back. You can see the different pieces. And I'm sanding and putting oil to finish the puzzle on the back. Yeah. I think that's it. Yes.
So many of you probably already noticed that Joe is not here. We very sorely miss him. He had to cancel last minute. And we did encourage him while he had to stay in California to make a little bit of an audio recording so he could personally tell us, and it may or may not play. So I can talk about it if it doesn't play.
Hello. Before I tell you about my exchange puzzle, I would like to take a moment to thank the members of the steering committee for doing the extra work that I caused by canceling my trip just a few days ago. My apologies and my thanks to all of them. Thanks to all of them for all the work they put in to put on a special Puzzle Parley. So, my name is Joe Seymour. I was collecting antique wooden jigsaw puzzles long before I ever thought about cutting one. I bought my first saw just to make replacement pieces. I don't sell puzzles, I cut them as a hobby and give them away. Although I have been cutting for more than 20 years, I don't think I've ever cut more than 50 puzzles in a single year, less than what some of you cut in a single month. My wife, Kim, gave me the name on the boxes. Depois is very beautiful in the Vietnamese language. She used to say this when I showed her a puzzle I had cut. The image I used for this year's exchange puzzles is just one of a series of watercolor paintings called Koi by Willie Gomez. Willie Gomez is an artist and illustrator living in Santo Domingo. There are 32 dropouts in each puzzle. That meant for the exchange puzzles, I drilled almost 400 holes and threaded the blade through an equal number of times to cut all these dropouts. I cut them first, then trimmed the outside edge of all of the puzzles before cutting any pieces. The plywood is 1/4 inch aircraft grade mahogany from Aircraft Spruce in San Diego. I used Pegasus 2.0 reverse tooth blades. I hope you like them, and thank you to all of the cutters who are swapping puzzles with me. I know I will enjoy them all.
That's his signature piece, and his little dog.
Round of applause for Joe. I'm not doing that one. Come on, Tom. So,
After all these other puzzles.
whatever. So, Tom, this is your first time doing the exchange? Second time? Yeah, because last year. So, somebody turn that off. That's my phone.
Not my ring.
Phones. Anyway, we'd finally gotten him to participate last year in the exchange, but you've been coming how many times? You remember?
I think since 2008.
So a long time. And then he definitely had to be convinced to participate again because
I hate cutting 11 puzzles in a row.
Go to the laser.
All of my puzzles are around 7.5 inches, and they are basically based on this loop type piece here. So you'll see that all through the puzzle. I call them ghosts because each puzzle has these O's. And all of the puzzles, which one is this? This is 11. There are 2 color streaks, maybe 3 color streaks that run through it. This one, I think, is puzzle number 11, and it is, you have to see it at an angle so that the colors are hard to see because they're, you've seen the cars that have different colors on iridescent. Thank you. Let's see if there are other ones. Yeah, so you can see the different colors here. This one has 5 O's as opposed to the other ones. The piece range is, I think, 78 to 88 pieces. So, and I think the border will make it, the edge will probably make it a little bit difficult, and there are a few dropout areas. And you can see that the ghosts all have extensions, like the fancy edges. Typical of my recent puzzles. So,
Those are holes in the center of those figure pieces, right?
yeah, the holes were all done with the drill press and a Forstner bit. I'm not good enough to cut a circle. Well, at least not a small circle, but the big circle is all right. They're prettier in person. So all the holes are a different color, and then they're different colors than the stripes. That's it.
come on down, Pete. So, this one is a real treat because he's not cutting wood.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to say thanks for accepting me as part of the group, considering I don't cut wood. I don't, I identify with what you guys do. We're in this together, so I appreciate it.
Hold the mic up a little bit more.
Oh, yeah. So this puzzle is called Crystalline, and there's 2 reasons for that. The first is that each of the geometric shapes is kind of resembling a crystal from the structure when you pass light across the surface. I like to challenge myself into new techniques for each of the puzzles that I do, and for this puzzle I was experimenting with laser engraving the surface to create sharp, reflective, geometric sections. My previous puzzle actually, I did that a little bit, but they weren't sharp lines, they were all rounded features. So I wanted something that would catch the light, kind of like a faceted stone. The other reason it's called crystalline is because this was my first puzzle where I did a high voltage anodizing. Oh, by the way, this is titanium. So this is grade 5 titanium, which is a really popular metal in aerospace, but also in like bicycles, knives. It's a really fun metal because it can be anodized to bright colors. So this one is anodized to a high voltage, and if you read about it, like the high voltage anodizing versus low voltage, it's a whole different ballgame. It's kind of like with music, where on your piano you'll have multiple octaves but the same notes. It works the same way with anodizing. As you thicken the oxide layer, the color changes. If you go too far, then it actually gets less intense, but this is kind of the most intense octave. And the other cool part about that is, and a reason why I wanted to do it, was because it smudges less. Some of my other puzzles that I've done before with lower voltages for the anodizing, if you eat pizza and like smudge it, you'll notice immediately that the color isn't as intense, and then you have to wash it with like Windex or something, and then it restores it. But until that's restored, you can't really see the color clearly. But with the thicker oxide of a higher voltage anodizing, you get to see it because a smudge is less of a percentage of thickness compared to how the total thickness is. So that was fun. It was definitely a lot of work. So the other kind of cool part is I'm still exploring this, but there's ways of making the anodizing process kind of produce kind of two colors at once. So different lighting at different angles can kind of give you a slight shift from like a purple to a maroon. It's still something I'm exploring, but this is the first puzzle where I've integrated a little bit of that. Here's for scale. So they're pretty small. This puzzle, it ended up being more pieces than I planned initially, because as I kept drawing the cut in Illustrator on my iPad, I wasn't happy with the flow of the lines, and I just kept adding more pieces until it looked right. Because initially I was trying to do this, curvature to it, and there were some huge pieces and some super tiny pieces. It didn't look quite right, so I just added more pieces and it solved it. So here's the best scale. So there's a penny, but like this piece is bigger than this piece.
And you give them a pair of tweezers with that.
Yeah, I do include tweezers just because it's part of the tactile experience. So you could do them with your hands, but I think it's fun.
So if your hands shake, you should not try this puzzle.
Yeah, it's definitely optimized for me, but but anyway, so the backside is polished and stuff, but you could kind of do it as a single silver puzzle as well, but it's not really a double-sided puzzle. So that's that.
I hope that is edified and inspired all of you, because now I want to go home and sleep, but then I'll make puzzles. So there's two specific things that Melinda touched on that I have brought to the exchange, which would be the studio night. So we are all used to doing Zoom calls now, thank you, COVID. So why not have all of the cutters sit and chat? And so we all scheduled out a couple of Zoom nights over the last 3-4 months, and it allowed us to get to know each other and kind of see the progress of each other's puzzles and designs, and this added the whole connection that was kind of lost in the past, where people would go and, they would sign up for the exchange, but then you had no real contact except for with the organizers. So you didn't really know who you were trading with, and you didn't know the people. got your puzzles and whose awesome puzzles that you ended up getting and learning from, which is one of the hugest parts of this, is that as a puzzle maker, as a puzzle cutter and designer, when you intentionally put one of these really unique puzzles together, you can learn just from how you put it together, and that inspires your own designs. So we all got to know each other a lot compared to in the past, and that was really helpful for a lot of our new attendees who were very uncomfortable because, like, I mean, you guys are fantastic. You are a support group for wooden puzzle junkies. But you're also a little intimidating for somebody who's never, traveled out here to come to this event. And so that made it so all of the exchange people had friendly faces that they would at least recognize when they got here. So that was the one thing. And then the second thing was, we do have the best in show, right? Well, that's great and all, but I think that puzzles ought to be played with. So with the puzzle exchange, my idea was like, hey, we've got these museum puzzles, and they must be really sad puzzles because they never actually get played with. They just go straight to the museum. And I may be anthropomorphizing them, which I tend to do with a lot of things. My whole house is covered in googly eyes. And so I suggested to the steering committee, and they let me go ahead and do this. So we are going to take the ones that we normally would send to the museum. We are going to bring them out to casual puzzling at night, and we're going to let all of you guys play with them. But you have a task. Don't just play with it. I want you to enjoy it. But you have to vote for whichever one is your favorite. And then whichever one of the exchange puzzles is your favorite, and that gets the vote, they get one of these trophies, which are also puzzles, by the way.
How do you vote for them, Janelle?
I have to slice it here. Inside of your program, there is a little tag. I'm just appreciating this illustration over here that is on there, and you go find that, and there's a box. Now, we are using the same box for both, but put your best in show one in there first, and then come back Saturday and put your puzzler's favorite, that's what that is, with the heart in the center, put your puzzler's favorite vote in there.